Beta branch 1.5.9 has just dropped for Bannerlord, and I am excited. A lot has been added with this beta branch, but as always, let's go through some of the quick spark notes or things that have changed to give you a quick summary to decide if you should jump into 1.5.9. So with 1.5.9, we get some really cool improvements, namely Sandbox kingdoms. So you can just start the game, no dealing with any kind of campaign or story or anything like that. You're just going to play the game completely sandbox. And with that, it's also going to be adding in the ability to start with the culture you select as your beginning culture. In addition to that too, they've added in these sliders for both weight and build. So you can just be a ripped Russian bodybuilder, or you can just be a real chungus, whatever you so wish. In addition to that, we also get the new prison break mechanic that has been added into the game, and a nice overhaul to some of the perks. Some things have been retooled and tweaked, but namely stuff like smithing, that is now your smithing stamina scales with your level at 0.5 per skill. So if you have 180 skill, you get 90 extra stamina. So a very nice change there. In addition to, there was a overhaul with the throwing weapons. They now have a chance to pierce shields, and they do more damage to shields. So depending upon your perk layout and everything like that, you can actually have it so that you're doing a significant amount of damage to shields, maybe even popping them. One thing too, what's really cool about smithing, they've fixed two other little perks. So smithing is at its current implementation 100% active, but we will be getting a crafting rework. They did say that in, I believe, the developer update number 4 or 5, something like that. So we know that that is coming in the future. But that is the quick down and dirty spark notes of what has changed. Also, there was a lot of quest overhauls. So if there were a lot of quests that you thought were really buggy or just weren't really worth it, they have been changed. So we're going to go through the whole patch notes here, but I guess the big question is 1.5.9 worth it? And yes, it is. Playing those two new features, the Sandbox Kingdom and the Prison Break mechanic, which is really fun, we're going to go through in a little bit, is just really exciting. And you can play this with an existing save. Prison Break will work, but I strongly recommend you to start a new save to be able to benefit from everything that has happened in both 1.57, 1.57, 1.58, and 1.59. So I really recommend you do that whole brand new save for this one. We will probably be getting 1.510 and 1.6 in the coming weeks and months. So maybe you want to wait to do that. But I think 1.59 is a great time to start a new save, and your current saves will work if you need to do that. But that is your down and dirty quick idea of what 1.59 is. If that's all you needed to do, go ahead and shut the video down if you wish. But please do like, comment, subscribe, all that kind of action. It does help me out a ton. But for those of you who want to get into the nitty and gritty, let's read some beta patch notes for 1.59. So going down here, we have a ton of crash fixes. If you were experiencing a lot of crashes, as always, I do recommend you look through this list to see if it applies to you. Some save and load fixes here, some localization fixes, but jumping into it, art, we get two new items. The clothing item, Decorated Thick Tunic. It looks like a lot of the Sturgian armor, or I guess civilian armor that was added earlier in the game. It's just a different variation and color. So there is that. But the new reinforced neck guard is a Battanian style Argyle little neck cloak, which looks really good with the new Battanian armor. And it has a 17 armor on it, so it's actually pretty cool. Performance improvements to Sturgia level 2 gatehouse model. I'm not sure why I colored that green, but that has happened. Animations, inventory animation refactoring has been completed. Characters no longer reset their animations when a new item is equipped, and the inventory seems to respond a lot quicker. In 1.58, I was getting the spinning icon of an icon loading into the UI. I don't really get that at all anymore. It's a pretty quick, snappy environment now. And whenever, like I was saying, or whenever you put on an item, your character's animation won't reset. So what I mean by that is if you twist him to the right, him or her to the right, you put on an item, they won't reset to the center. It'll just kind of be however you want. So although that doesn't seem like a big thing, it's just kind of a nice, pleasing aesthetic. And on top of it, like I said, the inventory is a lot more responsive. For some UI changes, the party screen change has gone through here, and it's quite nice. So the party screen won't look any different. But when you go to, say, upgrade a unit, or you go to recruit a prisoner, or anything of the sort, like say upgrading a unit that was on foot that now needs a horse, or a unit that was on horse that now needs a war horse, you now will be able to see exactly how much currency they will gain or lose when they close the screen with the done button. It's actually a really nice quality of life improvement, and I'll show it to you in the game once we jump in after the patch notes, but it's a really nice transparency on how much gold, how much morale change you're going to inflict upon your party, especially if you're recruiting prisoners, especially if you're recruiting prisoners that are also bandits, and you'll get to see any horses, influence, or gold cost increase along with it. UI code gen, we've implemented a new system for UI screen initialization and execution. This change improves performance and memory usage. I put this in Cyan, as the app calls it, because I'm not really sure the overall effect on me playing through the game. You guys might notice that it's helped improves your performance and memory usage. For me, I haven't noticed a whole ton of difference, so I just wanted to at least point that out, though. That is a new thing that was added. Gamepad navigation has been increased in the game as well. This feature is currently only enabled with gamepads, but will be implemented for keyboard arrow keys and the enter key for the click action in the near future. And it essentially allows you to move around the campaign map at a lot better and more reliable and fast rate. What's nice about this really is that it's kind of slating this for an eventual console release, which a lot of people have asked me about. So this is just another kind of step in that direction, and I wanted to quickly highlight it. Added a color switcher button to the banner editor. This button will swap the current sigil colors with the background colors. So a nice kind of compare contrast. You can decide which one works better for you. Added a new illustration to the Kingdom Diplomacy screen background. I don't know if you guys ever knew this, but in the lower right corner of every screen in the Kingdom screen is like a little stone motif with a different little decoration in the corner of it. Like, okay, you're on one screen, it's got this one, on this screen, it's got a different one. Well, the diplomacy screen, when you click the diplomacy tab in the Kingdom screen, it has a different background now. Worth highlighting, but nothing huge. Added a new issue solved by hero notification to settlement events, notifications above the settlement's nameplates, to inform the player about actions that AI lords are taking when entering a settlement, which is just kind of good to know. This way you just don't enter a settlement and it's just not there. You now have a better idea of what's going on. Added a warning, red text color change to map info bar party size label. It will now turn red if the main party is currently over the party limit, which is actually very nice. There's been plenty of times where I've accidentally recruited one or two over my party limit, and I've had people desert that I did not want to desert from my army. And usually you'll get a warning before they do that too, so it's nice that this is just an added layer of insulation from you accidentally messing up your own party, but it is nice to see that it's in red, and it's a nice context clue for you. Added a new Rebellion map event icon, so you know where they're going, aside from just the banners changing on the map. Inventory menu plus and minus keys now buy and sell all when combined with control, which is a very nice quality of life improvement. I know myself personally, I have use those buttons and used control thinking it would apply all, and it does not. So that is a nice little change there. Moving through some fixes, there's also some battle and siege improvements. Killing a lord on the battlefield no longer triggers relation penalties, which is nice. Spectator ghost camera mode in a mission now considers scrolling through more important characters first, such as generals, lords, companions, etc. This has been relegated to a mod previously and is now just part of the base game, which is an awesome little improvement. Parties with a high wounded ratio now visit settlements more often to reduce the risk of being caught by enemies. Now, this might seem minor, but it's really helpful, especially in the sense of Sturgia, where a lot of their characters get caught by enemies because they'll win or lose a battle, they'll be pretty beat up, and then they'll just get captured because they stayed on quote unquote the battlefield, out and about, rather than going back to try to replenish their troops. So this should hopefully balance that out across the map and have less characters being captured because they have 14 soldiers and 345 wounded. That's an exorbitant number, but my point remains. Character development system, the Sandbox mode has been added to the game. So weight and build sliders have been added to both Sandbox and campaign mode, and this is retroactive. So if you boot up your old save, you can now edit weight and the build by just pressing V on the keyboard. That's V as in Victor, not B as in boy. You can just go ahead and edit your weight and build. You don't have to make a new campaign. But Sandbox Mode allows players to choose a starting age group, and then Sandbox starting positions on the world map are determined by the selected character culture, which is something that a lot of people have wanted for a long time, and it is now in the game. Pick them off the walls and make them pay perks have been implemented, whereas before they were just shut off. Crafting stamina and recovery rate now scales with the smithing skill. So again, like I was saying, that crafting stamina is 0.5 per skill, which I'll show you when we jump into the game. And the recovery rate now scales with smithing. So obviously higher smithing makes for a higher recovery rate. Leadership skill effect on morale has been decreased. Riding veterinary perk now halves the chance of a hero's mount dying or becoming lame after it falls in battle. Prior to this, it was just said 50%. So I don't know if that nomenclature change or the verbiage change on that really does anything. So like I said before, it said 50%. Now it's saying now halves. So I'm not sure what the overall effect is, but I ultimately look at this as a positive. So I've marked it in green. Leadership authority perk secondary effect has been changed to increase party size limit by 5. So a lot of these little perks we're about to talk about have had some retooling. Previously, this was town garrison is 20% more effective for security, and disorganized state duration is reduced by 20%. The disorganized state duration was removed, and increased party size limit increased by 5 was added in. The Tactics Swift Regroup perk effect has been changed to decrease disorganized time for breaking sieges or raids by 50%. Prior to this, that was decreased disorganized time, period, not for sieges or raids, just overall by 50%. So I don't know if by saying that breaking it for sieges or raids is a different thing, but typically anytime you win or win a battle, you're disorganized for a little bit of time. And Swift Regroup reduced that by 50% for all instances. This seems to now relegate it only to breaking sieges or raids, and by 15%. So I look at that as a bit of a nerf. Scout Forager's perk secondary effect has been changed to 15% reduction in disorganized state recovery position or duration. Previously, this was 20%. So again, a little bit of a nerf. Fixed smithing sharpened edge and sharpened tip perks. So those two perks, what they do is sharpened edge is cut damage of crafted weapons increased by 2%, and thrust damage of crafted weapons increases by 2%. So what was going on is that these were not properly applying this, and that has now been fixed, putting smithing at 100% perk implementation in the game. Fixed scouting vanguard and rearguard perks and effects. So to give you an idea of what those were, I'm using bannerlordperks.com on my other screen so I can read these out to you guys. But for scouting, what was happening with Vanguard is this perk incorrectly multiplies damage against the hero's party by 1.05 while attacking in simulated battles. It also incorrectly multiplies damage against the hero's party by 10% while sallying out in simulated battles. That has now been fixed. So it should properly implement as needed without any bugs. So that is nice to see with makes scouting almost 100%. It still needs keen sight to be fully implemented. Moving on to clan and party, family members can now be commanded in missions along with companions, which is nice. So if you have your brother join you, he will actually listen to you. Dungeon prisoners are now barterable along with prisoners in the party. This is nice if you're trying to, say, put a ton of prisoners in the dungeon and you have a ton of prisoners in your own party, you can barter them much easier at the tavern district. Fixed a bug that allowed the player to attack a clan member's party. So I've put this in red because a lot of people would use this to superficially increase their skills by attacking the clan members or their allied units, whatever it was, and the allied units was fixed in 1.57. This is an old holdover from the old assassin system that used to be in the game when they used to have a class system. So it's something that hadn't been removed, but this is a bug that has now been has fully removed that. Fixed a bug that prevented players from assigning a new clan role if the previous one was assigned to a caravan leader. So if you say, oh, I'm going to set this guy as the medic, but I'm also going to make him caravan leader. He goes out and becomes a caravan leader. Well, then you can't reset that medic until you put that caravan leader back in your party and manually unset it. So this has been fixed. Now, as settlement actions, we get the new prison breaks. So these are pretty sweet. I'm going to read through this whole blurb here. Players can break into enemy settlements to rescue clan and family members, vassals, friendly, and neutral lords. After approaching a guard with a bribe to let you into the dungeon, the prison the great prison bake-off, the prison break mission will begin. The sum of the bribe depends on the ransom value of the prisoner, security of the settlement, and roguery skill of the player. So this is another example where they're really trying to bring roguery home and really increase its value in the game, and I'm stoked to see it. In order to break out the prisoner successfully, both you and the prisoner must defeat all the guards within the dungeon without getting knocked out. Higher security and wall level will make the breakout harder by having more guards stand in the way of you and your escape. Should the prisoner get knocked out in the escape, you'll have to fight your way out alone to save yourself. Leaving the prisoner behind could result in him dying on the dungeon floor or being locked up behind bars again. Should you get knocked out during the escape, you'll become a prisoner or even worse, die. So it's a high risk, high reward here. You might even lose the person you're trying to break out. You might die yourself. So I think it's a really cool thing added to the game. I've done some initial testing of it. I only crashed once. So I plan on there being plenty of bugs with this, as this is the beta. It's the first time it's been implemented into the game in any way, shape, or form. So be patient with it. This will definitely be fixed by the time it hits the main branch if you encounter any big bugs. Crashing isn't a huge bug to me because, like I said, I was able to jump into another one and it was just fine. Let's move down here to quests and issues. Like I was saying, a lot of these have been changed and overhauled and updated and just been made a whole lot better. So duration, crime rating gain, and troop requirements have been updated for, and it's just pretty much every single quest. And removed randomization when calculating issue difficulty, which is quite nice. So extortion by deserters, it reduced the size of the deserter party to adjust quest difficulty. Escort merchant caravan, the quest has been redesigned and re-implemented from scratch. So a lot of people hated this one and they've redone it entirely. So give it a go now. It is worth at least checking out. Scout enemy garrison, only faction leaders will now be able to give the quest, and the scouting skill requirement has been decreased from 40 to 30. The Spy Among Us, which is a pretty elaborate quest, has had its base reward value increased from 300 to 500. So some nice changes to a lot of the quests, a lot of bug fixes, a lot of overhauls, quite nice all the way around. Now for other, they removed non-civilian tagged weapons from civilian starting equipment. Why this is in red is that if you were, say, trying to get the pure blood from your brother, if you started the campaign, or any other kind of little tricks to pull from someone's civilian equipment that was not really a civilian item, because it's just the way the game spawned them, this has been removed. Now, I haven't tested this on everything and everyone yet, so there probably is some that might still be in the game, but just be wary. They won't. If you were relying on this as some sort of like shortcut, it will probably no longer be there. The Sturgian veteran bowman now uses the Nordic shortbow, which is a tier 4 shortbow, versus the mountain hunting bow, which was a tier 1. And a huge shout out here, the gentleman who's actually in charge of the troops and balancing and everything like that actually sent me an email in light of all of my troop overhaul video, and all the troop kind of review videos we've done for every single culture. And he said, hey, here's my response to a lot of what you said and why it is that way. And hey, you've actually changed my mind on some of these things. They'll be coming with patch 1.6 and stuff like that. So it's really awesome to just kind of get that direct one-on-one from Tailworld saying, hey, we watched, we responded, and we listened, because we also looked at what the community was saying and it matched up. So huge shout out there. Just want to give that nod. He was talking about this exact point, and there's some other stuff that he's mentioned as well that we're going to get to later in this. Remove the ability to record campaign missions since it's not currently supported and causes crashes. I didn't even know that was a thing. So I've put that in Scion. Multiplayer servers will be made available for a limited time for the beta version of the game, which is cool. Hopefully we'll actually get multiplayer to kind of get a full-on loving in one of these patches to kind of reboot it a bit, but added 2 new siege maps for this castle and the stronghold, which is cool. And then now we get into some of the other cool stuff here with the UI changes. Improve the readability of query pop-up texts, and it's actually very apparent. I usually kind of ignore those. It is what it is. But it's like a much bolder text. You can read it a lot better, so it's quite nice. Official modules can now be enabled but not disabled through the launcher. This will address the issue where no modules would load. Players can now enable official modules from the launcher and open the game correctly. No more deleting launcher data.xml. This is for a lot of people that were having issues where, hey, I've uninstalled all my mods and I'm still having issues booting the game up. This should hopefully fix some of those things, but not all of them. You know, it's definitely your mileage may vary type situation, but it is at least worth highlighting. Now for performance, just a lot of performance increases. Always happy to see these. Greatly improved initial loading of the game by changing how font files are loaded and through other fixes and optimizations. Fixed a memory leak that occurred after entering scenes. Small multi-core usage improvements have been made and disk usage improvements have been made. And also just to point out, with 1.58, DLSS was added into the game. So if you have a 20 or 30 GTX series NVIDIA GPU, you can now use DLSS. But one thing to point out with this is, if you've ever been playing Bannerlord for like a marathon 4 or 5 hour streak, you probably have noticed that the game will progressively get slower and slower and clunkier, and it needs you just to reboot it, and it fixes this. That should have fixed that. I was noticing that my game wasn't bogging down after 3 or 4 hours of gameplay and doing some tests here. So that should hopefully kind of be reflected for you guys as well. Now for combat, this is one of the other things that that gentleman was talking about in the email with me, but increase the firing range, not this in specific, the next ones. Increase the firing range of archers that are targeting cavalry units, which is cool, but javelins now deal 75% of their damage to shields, increased from only 10. So that's a 65% increase and it's huge. Throwing Impale perk now lets javelins penetrate shields as intended, which is awesome. And throwing axes now deal 50% of their weapon damage to shields, again up from 10. Improved camera collision with objects such as walls and bridges. So this way you won't be riding around a wall or a bridge and have the camera just judder and slam everywhere. It's been a lot better of a process, or it will be a lot smoother. Fix some DLS bugs with blurring and resolution scaling causing a dark screen. But those are the patch notes for 1.5.9. Overall, I think this is a really exciting patch to be jumping back into Bannerlord here, and I'm excited to do a stream of this on Saturday, so we'll be doing that. I'm going to jump in and show off some stuff from the game itself. We'll be taking a look at these 2 items, the decorated thick tunic and the reinforced neck guard, as well as just kind of quickly looking over some of the improvements with smithing and what have you. But let's just go ahead and look at some of those. Okay. Let's start off with the first thing that I think a lot of people want to talk about, Sandbox Mode. So don't press New Campaign, click Sandbox. If you press New Campaign, it's going to be the standard prompts you've seen before, but with weight and build added into it. You have to press Sandbox or else it doesn't work. So we're going to click our way through a lot of this here. Do be cautious when you're going with the weight and build. It might not look like there's much of anything here. Like, this doesn't really look that crazy, but when he has armor on, he will look uncomfortable. Trust me, I'll even show you. Onward! Yeah, perfect. Big, huge monster with a high-pitched voice makes total sense. So we'll go ahead and click over here. Just click our way through a lot of this stuff. See, look at him, dude. He just doesn't look like he's ever had a good night's sleep because of his tiny head and big body. Survived a siege, just again. Now here, we get to choose our adventuring path of age. And this will change how many focus points and attribute points we have. 20 is kind of your standard age that everyone starts off when you're doing your campaign, but increasing this to 30 to 40 to 50 gives you 6 and 3. So pretty much it's gonna go up by a factor of 2 and 1 every time. So at the max, you'll have 6 focus points and 3 unspent attribute points. I'll just press 50 for the sake of this video. Go ahead and press next. Remember, we started as our culture with Volandia. When we press next again, we'll set all this. I mean, here, not worth going through this, but set it all to realistic because that's how you should play the game. And we'll type in test here. And we can see the new little button here to quickly swap these. So the background and sigil color if we so wish. So if you want that That black background, you can have it if you want that black sigil, you can have it with a white field, which looks pretty cool. Well, not necessarily white, but close. We'll go ahead and just go with that. And here we are. We're over here in Valandia. Whereas otherwise, you would have started over here, right? Whoops, right over here. So it's cool that we now start culturally where we want to, and you notice you don't start by a training field. There's no additional prompts to click through, so you're good to go. You're in the game. Get going. So let's jump into some of the other changes that have happened in 1.5.9. Now, another thing I want to show off is the brand new party system. It will look ultimately exactly the same, like I was saying, but let's go ahead and look at our prisoners. We've got quite a few to recruit, and I'm just going to go ahead and press the recruit prisoner button on all these guys. Well, all the ones that I can recruit. Just do... Oops, press the wrong button there. Okay, so you can see I'll lose 34 of my party morale because I'm taking on that many prisoners. In addition, let's just kind of click some of these too. This is going to do that. That's going to do this. Okay, now look over here. Required warhorse. I'm going to click that. Oh, apparently I already did some. And if I hover over it, it tells me that I'm going to need to give 4 horses, 3 of which are normal horses, 1 of which is a war horse. So it's nice to see that when you hover over these items, well, this item in specific, but these will give you more granularity on what's going to happen when you press done. You're going to pay out 325, you're going to lose 34 morale, and you're going to pay that much more in horses. If you're wondering what's going to increase your actual daily party wage, every time you do one of these, it will show, it automatically reflects that. So if you're wondering here, like, hey, well, what's my new wage increase? Maybe it would be cool if that said, you know, you will now pay X amount more per day, which could be a cool way to just directly see it. But this kind of tells you like, okay, if I'm gonna do everything, here is the new cost of doing business. It's now $1,500 a day. So you can still see those items when you bring everything up together. But this gives you a real nice breakout of how your party's going to develop when you upgrade things, when you upgrade it to an additional unit needing a horse, or when you recruit some prisoners. As for the new items added into the game, let's take a look at those. So here is the new reinforced neck guard. And like I was saying, it looks pretty good when you couple it with some of the new Battanian armor. And again, it's at 17 body armor, which is pretty nice. Here, I'll even take this off so you can see the back end of it. Looks really good. It says that they also reduced cloth tessellation when you have a shield on your back. So if you have on your back, this will move less and the physics will be reduced. But it's kind of a nice little improvement here, especially for the Battanian armor stuff. Now, here is the long tunic that they added a couple patches ago. Here is the northern fur trimmed tunic they added again a couple patches ago. And here is the brand new decorated thick tunic. So again, it's a very similar overall look. It's just a little, well, you can see it's glossier, maybe made of a silk of sorts, and has some nice brocade on there. Very, very nice overall look. If you want to be dapper about the town, decorated thick tunic is the way to go. But those are the 2 new items added into the game with 1.5.9 as well. As for smithing, like I was saying before, smithing will now increase your stamina at 0.5 per skill level. So at 90 smithing, I should have 145 total stamina, with 100 being the base, 45 being the bonus. I wish it would say it right here. In fact, it'd be quite nice if it said, personal max stamina increase, that number, so that you can just directly see it here in smithing. And it'd be nice if it showed the actual refresh right here as well, because the refresh, I think, is really hard to compute because we don't actually have the hours in a day and everything like that. But let's look over here at Fenton the Smith, who has 180. Divide that by 2, we get 90. So he should have 190 smithing stamina. So we'll go into the smithy. We will take a look at my stamina. I've got 145. And then Fenton here has 190. And this is, again, the new system where it just kind of truncates everything in this nice little menu. When you click, you can see the actual percentages and everything. This happened a couple patches ago, but you can see their skill reflecting into their smithing stamina. This is the new stamina and refresh system for smithing. And at that, it brings our video here to a close. So overall, I think 1.5.9 is an amazing step in a good direction as far as adding some good stability to the game and bringing us both prison breaks and Sandbox Kingdom mode, removing that kind of pressure of the campaign mode from your gameplay. I will say I have had very little experience with bugs and crashes, but be mindful, everyone's experience is going to be different. You're going to want to turn off all of your mods, and you can play your existing saves, but I think you're better off starting a brand new one for 1.5.9. If you do want to wait until 1.6 comes out, I don't blame you. I will be starting, though, a brand new campaign come Saturday when we live stream at 10 a.m. Pacific daytime. You can jump on the channel and see me playing through the wild lands of Calradia. We'll make a fun character and we'll play through it together. But as always, guys, thank you so much for watching here today. I'm really stoked on this new patch. I've been waiting for it the last 2-3 weeks. So let's dive on in and have some fun. If you are experiencing any issues, if you are hitting some really hard bugs, please leave a comment below so that the developers can hopefully see it, and it just gets a lot more optics, quote unquote, on that as possible. And if you are experiencing that same bug, go co-op that comment and say, yeah, me too, and upvote it. That way, you know, they'll see 180 upvotes because this one person said I crash every time I go into the tavern district or what have you. So again, guys, as always, thank you so much for watching. Have a good one and take care.